Welcome back to the Producer Joe Show. I am joined today by Dave Marcus. He is a longtime producer and engineer of the San Diego Padres broadcasts. I hope you caught our show a couple days ago where we had Steve Dolan, longtime statistician for the Padres. If you didn't catch it, it is on YouTube. You can catch it there. Speaking of YouTube, please smash that subscribe button, as the kids say. But anyway, why don't we just get going here? I'm going to bring Dave in. Dave!
Hey, Joe, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Hi, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you taking your time here.
Yeah, usually people don't want me to talk at all in a radio booth, so this is my chance to, finally let people know I have a voice and not just a, sullen figure in the back of the booth.
This is your moment. This is your time. So, in a nutshell, tell us what you do.
Well, I always like to tell people I'm the bodyguard and babysitter for the broadcasters. That's only part of the job. I actually just finished cleaning Jesse Agler and Tony Gwynn Jr.'s pools today before I came over here to do this with you. So it's my off-season work. But on a serious note, I guess my technical title is producer engineer, which is sort of two jobs in one. Like you do an ESPN radio broadcast of the World Series like that, they have a producer and engineer, two people. I'm two people in one. So the engineering part is where I get to the ballpark with all my equipment. So the microphones, the headsets, the mixer, establish the communication back to the radio station and the studio, make sure that's the most important part. The rest is all gravy. I say just make sure they get around and I get to the studio. Then, during the broadcast, I'm sort of mixing the broadcast, which is, mixing the announcers' microphones with the crowd microphones, the crowd noise, the back crack microphones we call, where you hear the crack of the bat, the umpires, the catcher's mitt, add that to the broadcast, plus the umpires' microphones when they announce during the video reviews sessions, and also like in the postseason, we have a microphone in the clubhouse. So like you heard listen during this postseason when the Padres, clinched the wild card and beat the Braves. Tony Gwynn Jr.'s down in the clubhouse doing interviews. So I established all that, make sure all kind of runs smoothly. It's kind of like a traffic cop in some ways as well. That's the engineering part. The producing part is like another set of eyes in the booth. Like a third set of eyes. If Jesse's calling to play the balls in the right field corner and a base runner falls down at second base, he may not see that. I might be watching that, so I can kind of let him know, hey, why the guy was starting out by 30 feet because he fell down, kind of thing. As well as just information, you're looking up stats and records that might be happening during the game and keeping track of the games, other games around baseball and news information for those games and scores and interesting facts I can kind of throw in. As well as kind of keeping, we have what we call our trafficking, which is, the live reads, like, hey, it's T-shirt night on Saturday, or, this game brought to you by whomever. Controlling all that kind of thing, make sure they're all read and make sure they have all the stuff they need to read for every game. And other than that, hanging out, having dinner and lunch and watching a baseball game is pretty good gig. So I'm very lucky I've been doing it for a long time, as you said. So that's kind of in a nutshell. It's what kind of job where, unless you actually been in a booth, you don't really see what's going on. So it's a lot of little things really have to kind of be taken care of. Just kind of be there, support the announcers. They're the artists. They're painting the picture. I'm just kind of a guy with the extra brush and paint they needed, kind of there to be there to do what I can, help them out.
So if I'm not mistaken, your title is producer engineer, but I'm assuming that you can add on to that quality control. You can add on to that probably any number of things that you just listed there. It's a lot more than I even knew. And without sounding weird, I have been following you for a long time because I am a baseball nerd. I grew up here in San Diego listening to the Padres. So of course, I hear your name mentioned all the time. But you do a lot more than I even knew that you did. And I think that's pretty fantastic. It's a good teamwork going on up there, it looks like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I started in 94. It's just my 31st season. So I've been through, it was a Jerry Coleman for 20 years, a Ted Light for 27 years of Ted, and, the great Bob Chandler. They're my first 6 years along the way, guys like Andy Mazer and Bob Scale and Tim Flannery, and Glenn Geffner, and leading the guys today we have, with Tony Gwynn Jr. and Jesse Agler, who are kind of funny. When I first started, I was 26, and I had Jerry and Ted and Bob, guys are much older than I am. Now I'm the oldest guy in the booth now, even older than Jesse and Tony. So it's kind of a how my life has gone from my entire adulthood basically has been spent doing this. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of teamwork. It's been very lucky to work with some great people who I still all consider friends. Had lunch with Bob Scown today, as a matter of fact, not to name drop, but so we're all stay close to these guys, and I text him flying all the time and goof around with him and stuff. So it's been a great experience. I'm very lucky to have the time I've had in the booth with those guys.
Did you work with the great Ken Levine, the versatile Ken Levine?
Yeah, Ken. When back when we started, Jerry did the CBS Game of the Week on radio, and so he would be gone mostly on Saturday and Sunday. So we always had Ken for a few years was a fill-in on Saturday and Sunday games. And obviously, you don't know who Ken Levine is. He's a very good baseball broadcaster. He had been with the Orioles and Mariners before he got to the Padres. He was a writer on MASH, Cheers, Frasier. Was a playwright now. He wrote his own book. I brought props, Joe, just for it's a great book, by the way. Ken Levine wrote.
I need that.
Gone. No, wait a minute, about his broadcasting days of the Orioles and Mariners. It's a very funny book because Ken is a comedy writer. Obviously, the shows I mentioned are all, comedies. So, but yeah, Ken is a great guy. I always work. It's almost 30 years since I worked with him, but on a day-to-day basis or a week, 2 days a week basis on Saturday and Sundays when Jerry was gone. But yeah, Ken is he's a playwright now. So if you ever see anything written by Ken Levine, go see it because he's terrific.
I saw this on Facebook the other day, and I just had to pluck it from there. And I listened to his podcast. He's put a wrap on his podcast, but it's just here I am. I'm going sideways already, but great podcast. If anybody gets a chance to catch up on it all. But anyways, back to you, and I'm glad you have. I need that book. So throughout the course of a game, you're there, you're looking, you're watching everything, you're pushing buttons. Do you ever get a chance to leave the booth, or are you pretty much confined to those three walls?
During the game, I'm pretty much locked in. I once in a while have to go to the restroom in emergency situations. I've had to leave, but you try to, we use the facilities before the game starts, and then right before the game starts, and then kind of stick around. But if I have to, I could. I always kind of get nervous. Nothing's going to really happen probably, but especially nowadays, this thing's a lot more stable technically on our connection to the studio, basically. But generally, I'm basically in the booth once the game starts till it's over. No matter how long the game goes, we've had some long games sometimes, but the new rules with the ghost runner at second base, we call it. The games are gone. You don't get to a long extra inning games anymore. So most games are under 3 hours, and thanks to the pitch clock, which is a godsend, which we definitely love the pitch clock and the new extra inning rules as well. But we've had some 5-6 hour games. Well, it's a little bit touch and go with the bladder, but you kind of train yourself.
I think I asked you because I'd probably find myself going to find the hot dog cart because nothing like a good old ballpark hot dog,
Yeah, well, they have those for us in the press box free, and I try to refrain, maybe 1 or 2 a season. If I ate those every day, I'd be in really big trouble. So. 1 or 2 a season? Yeah, I try to stay away from those just because I have enough other issues with. I don't want to gain any more weight than I already have.
I got you.
But yeah, no, you do get a little bit hungry during the game, but I like to snack on trail mix as my go-to in-game snack. So.
Now, how did you get your job? How did you land this job?
Well, I grew up in LA, and I was a big sports fan. LA Dodgers, Lakers, Kings, UCLA. But listen, anything I could listen on the radio, I would. When the best announcers of all time were from in LA at the time, Vin Scully, Jerry Doggett, Ross Porter, and the Dodgers. There you go.
By the way, that's a fantastic picture.
Yeah, I can talk about that too. Real quick, I grew up listening to Vin and revering Vin Scully. I mean, who didn't love Vin Scully? You grew up with a Dodger fan or just a baseball fan, and then. As I got this job, all of a sudden I'm in the booth next door to Vin Scully. The Dodgers come to San Diego, their booth is next to ours, and I'm like, oh my God, it's like my hero, Vin Scully, right there. And eventually I would kind of warm up and say, we'd say hello to each other in passing, and a couple of times I interviewed him for our pregame show. And he was always very gracious. And in his last year that he was broadcasting, everybody and their mother wanted a picture with Vin Scully. And so I asked if I could have a picture with him. And he said, sure, come on in the booth. And introduced me to his wife. And it was really very friendly guy. And it's great because when a guy like that, the guy here on the air is a guy that he's off the air. Not everybody's like that. There's some people on the air that one way and they're off the air, they're not maybe as nice,
Sure.
and vice versa. But Vin was definitely the way you see him there in that picture. He was happy to take the picture with me, I believe. But I grew up in LA, big sports fan, want to be like anybody else, an athlete, play for the Dodgers or play UCLA, go to school at UCLA and play basketball or football there. But one day, Mom told me, only a few people actually make it to the pros. So you might want to have a backup plan. So how can I get to a ball? How can I get to games? So it can't be a player. How can I actually get to these games? So I remember listening to broadcasts all the time. You always thank the producer engineer, such and such. In this case, would be a guy named Bob Wall, for example, did the Dodger games for many, many years. And Vin Scully would thank him. So I knew there was somebody else in the booth as a kid. I remember going to Dodger games in the bleachers, look my binoculars up to the radio booth and see who's up there. Who else is up there besides Vin and Jerry and Ross? There's guys in the back of the booth. I had no idea what he did or what his job was. So I go to San Diego State. I graduate high school, go to San Diego State, become a journalism major. Figure I'll get into, the media somehow, was print, broadcast, or radio. Worked at the campus radio station at San Diego State, KCR, which is very inclusive. Anybody wanted to be on the air, just come on by, and you got to be on the air. We broadcast San Diego State football games and volleyball and baseball and some basketball games. Graduated and then got a job at Mighty 690. You remember the old sports station. At that time, they weren't quite all sports yet, but they had Hacksaw and eventually added the Loose Cannons, which was their board op, the original Loose Cannon show with Steve Hartman and Chet Forty. Then he became producer of the Too Much Show with Steve Mason, Rick Schwartz, if you recall. This is the early 90s. The same time I had started doing some San Diego State basketball and football games, engineering them, producing them, as well as San Diego Gulls for a couple of years, getting experience doing this type of job. So basically, January of 94, I guess it was, I saw a job listing. The Padres are going to hire, or KFMB is going to hire a new producer engineer for the Padres. I saw the job listing. I said, man, that's the job I love. It's a dream job, traveling, spring training, home games, road games for a Major League Baseball team. They wanted 5 years experience. I was only 3 years out of college at the time. And I talked to people I knew worked at KFMB at the time who I'd worked with other places. I had interned at Channel 10 as well at one time with the Rick Powers, who was at KFMB also at Channel 8 at the time. So go ahead, apply. What can it hurt? So this is 1994, before email, really, before I had an email anyways. So I just typed out a resume, went down to KFMB studios. Channel 8 is also the KFMB radio. Walked to the reception area, handed the receptionist my resumes. Here you go. This is for the Padre job. And God bless her, because she said, one moment, let's see if the program director is available. So she called back. Program director, name was Bill Stairs. He said, hey, come on back for an interview. I'm like, what? I had never expected an interview that day. You probably wasn't even dressed for an interview. You would want to be dressed for a job interview. Went back, had an interview with Bill. I guess it went pretty well. Calling back for a second interview. Said, here's the equipment. Set it up. So I had all the equipment I'd never seen before, but I kind of used similar stuff. Set up the equipment I went for a broadcast. There's like a third interview after that, and they called me early February of 94 and said, okay, you got the job. Congratulations. Spring training starts, March 1st. Head to Peoria, Arizona, and away we went. That's how I got the job. And had that reception maybe not passed her resume back or called the program director that day, who would have put in a pile of resumes, and who knows what might have happened. So I was very lucky that I never saw her again. I wish I knew her name, because I would thank her. But in funny stories, I went back to the station after I got hired, to meet some people. And Stacey Taylor was talk shows at KB at the time, and he saw me. He's like, "Are you to do a PD?" I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, I didn't realize that Bill Stairs had been fired. The guy who hired me.
Oh, no.
And he's been fired. He kind of joked around like, I'm this kid, you do PD? So, yeah, so Bill Stairs, who actually hired me, had been fired a few days after I was officially hired, I believe. So
it's not because of a recent hire, I hope.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, this one worked out pretty well, hopefully for them. But yeah, it's kind of funny how that all kind of transpired, and that's how I got the job. And then, like I said, here we are, 30 years later. It's still going. That's hopefully answered the
That's
question.
fantastic.
For a long
That's
roundabout answer.
that's really great. I mean, that's an accomplishment for sure. So between all you producer engineers, is there like a secret fraternity between you all with the teams, or you guys all?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's funny. I was 31 years sounds like a long time. There are a couple of guys who are still doing it right now who have done it longer than I have. A couple of guys retired, did like about 40 years. So a lot of you guys get into it and it's the job for quite a long time. But yeah, I mean, especially guys in the NL West, we see most of the time, good friends. We have a text chain kind of thing going on with me and the Dodgers and Giants and Arizona guys. And so it's it's always good to some of these guys only see like once or twice a year. For a few days at a time. But yeah, it's great to get together. And every year in spring training, all the guys who go to Arizona spring training, the Cactus League, we have one big dinner every year in spring training. All this kind of tell stories about our announcers and rip our announcers in front of tell stories about who's bad, who's good. War stories from which booth is good, which booth is bad, what happened in this city, that city. So yeah, it's definitely a very fraternal group of guys who are again guys that become really lifelong friends, really. So I'm very happy to know those guys as well.
Now I haven't had an advanced look at the Padres 2025 schedule yet, due to the interleague games, which I'm not a fan of, I will admit. I'm a purist. I'm old. Will you be going to Sacramento this year?
Yeah, unfortunately, in April, we were one of the first teams in there. I say unfortunately, that makes that Sacramento, but like the ballpark was the Padres actually played 2 spring training games at that ballpark. Got me 15 years ago or so. I remember it's a minor league ballpark, and the facilities, as of last year, someone told me who was there, like are not what we're used to as far as broadcast booths, the number of broadcast booths, what the infrastructure of the broadcast booths are. So we're kind of going in there one of the first teams. The clubhouses are going to be in the outfield, which can be like a long, and instead of the dugouts, because there's not room, there are the dugouts, and so they have a lot of work to do in that ballpark. I understand that they're working right now as we speak. So it'd be interesting to see. I'd rather be one of the guys who goes there later in the season once few people have been in there to see so they can relay it. We all kind of talk to, hey, even in a new ballpark, what's it like there? Where's this? Where's that? How do you get to the booth or the elevators? How's the press box food? The important things.
Yes. Hot dogs.
But yeah, we will be in Padres will be in Sacramento in one of the first road trips of the year.
Now, when you're traveling, you visit all the cities, of course, and tell me which city. This is a 2-part question. Tell me which city is your favorite to visit, and why is it Chicago?
Well, funny you should say that. I Chicago. I love the city of Chicago. It's great. You go to Chicago in the spring after it's like been 30 degrees. Padres are actually in Chicago this year in like April when it can be 40 degrees. We've been there before on opening day and other times in April when it's like you're freezing and the wind's blowing in. It's not a fun place to be. But Chicago, like in May, June, before it gets hot, it's a great town. Working at Wrigley Field, though, for what we do is not the greatest experience. I have a couple of trunks of equipment, 200 pounds of equipment I carry around with me. There's no elevator to the press box at Wrigley Field still.
Oh, wow.
There's a reason they have an elevator that goes up 1 floor below the press box. So I have to haul my equipment up 2 flights of narrow stairs to get to the broadcast booth. So I've never really – and then take it down after the series is over as well. So it's never been my favorite place to work. And the booth is very small.
You can hire me as your assistant. I'll go to Chicago.
Yeah, I know I shouldn't complain, but no, Chicago is a great town. Great restaurants. Great walking around town. We stay downtown Michigan Avenue, so I always enjoy going to Chicago. Again, when we get there in May and June, it's a little better than in April or late in the summer. It's a little bit more steamy but Chicago is. If you've ever been there, I recommend everybody go to Chicago.
Been there one time. It was on my bucket list. Yeah, it was on my travel bucket list. I fell in love with the city. It was just gorgeous.
Yeah, a lot of good restaurants for sure, and There's a
So
lot
is
going
that
on
your
there.
favorite city to visit?
Yeah, it's definitely up there. I mean, I like. I've been to these places now so many times. So I was going to go to a new city. Toronto. We've only been to Toronto 3 times over the years to early play, so Toronto is a really cool place to go. I always enjoy going there. Other than going to the customs part of it, when you come into the city, come into the country, or leave the country. But yeah, Toronto's very sort of European and American kind of same time flavors to it. So Toronto's really cool. I mean, New York is great. Miami in the spring is also an awesome place to go. The weather is great there in the spring. So that's my biggest obstacle. Sometimes the weather. I always mention the weather to people because
Sure.
sometimes we have such great weather in San Diego. You go to the Midwest and the East Coast in the summer. It's pretty hot and
Oh,
humid. And rain, which is the other thing, which is probably the worst part. Because what I do, we hate rain because rain delays, rain outs, double headers, make them up. Never a fun day. So we're always so lucky we get to come back to San Diego after every road trip. So it's a definite plus to this job. As I know some of the guys are like, when they leave San Diego, they went to Pittsburgh and Milwaukee or Cincinnati. They're kind of like, oh my god, I'm going back there now. But I think most people you ask what their favorite stop on the road is, it's always San Diego. That's everybody says San Diego,
right.
which is for obvious reasons, I would think.
Yeah. You mentioned road trip. How was Seoul?
So it was great. I mean, other than the long flight, it was about
Sure.
13 hours going there and 10 hours coming back. But no, it was an amazing trip. I was so glad we got to go. Then seeing a very different culture than I've been to before. I've been to Europe and other parts of the Middle East, but never been to Asia, that part of Asia. And so the people were very excited to have us. The games there. I mean, I remember after the second game we flew back to San Diego, and it was about midnight Seoul time. Where we walked to the airport, and there were like I don't know a few hundred fans who came just to say thank you to the Padres and the Dodgers for coming. Just they weren't looking for autographs. Just they're waving, thank you. Some people say, "Hey, hope you liked our country."
Oh, that's good.
It's that was really neat because again, there's the first time having Major League Baseball games in Seoul, and so Padres have been kind of. I've been fortunate with the Padres. We've kind of been sort of trendsetters. Is that we're the first games ever in Mexico, regular season games in Mexico. They played in Monterrey in '96 against the
Caminiti.
Mets. We're the first games ever in Hawaii, regular season games in '97. Wish I would have continued, but it didn't. After 1 year, we're the first games ever Mexico City a couple of years ago. First team to play in Seoul, South Korea as well. So I've been very fortunate to go along these trips with the Padres that, they're the first ones to play these games here. That's the only thing you come away with is people are so happy to see, Major League Baseball in their city,
Sure.
regular season games as well that actually count in these cities. And so Seoul was again, great trip, long flights. We were there for a week, so we got a chance to do a little sightseeing as well. So it was really a neat country to go to.
Now you came on my radar. I mean, you've been on my radar for this show for quite some time, but you came on my radar for I believe it was August of this year. Jay Posner did a did a story in the UT on you. Just a fantastic write. I
It's an
mean,
action shot, by the way, that picture there. I'm in action. That's what it looked like during the game. That's true.
you looked focused.
Yeah, this is before the game. The photographers, it was very nice. I just kind of look. I said, "What do I do? Do I smile?" Because I'm not smiling like as the game's going on. Normally, it's kind of look like normal. So that's why I did it. And I was like, feel like people see the picture, they like, guy looks pretty bored or pretty, upset at something. But I'm not. I'm generally a pretty happy guy. But yeah, that was a very nice of the UT to do that story. And Jay Posner, the writer, I've known a long time as well, did a really nice job with it as well.
Well, the reverse angle, I'd have to say that your office is probably one of the best.
Yeah, we have a pretty good view. That's an annual picture I take every year during the home opener when the big flag out there and the fireworks and stuff is always a very festive day in Petco Park. I mean, it's amazing. I've been there for 20 years now, maybe more 21. I've lost track.
Yeah.
05 was the first year at Petco, wasn't it? Or 04 was the first year at
04,
Petco.
yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how they keep it looking so nice. And again, if people come to see Petco the first time, it's like they're amazed like how nice it is there. So we're very lucky to have our games at Petco, and I'm lucky to have that view as well. It's like where I sit basically. I look at from my seat in the broadcast booth. So.
Well, I obviously snagged that photo from your page, so
Yeah.
thank you. So there's one thing I want to ask you before I get there, though. Uh, do you have any like two memories? One, do you have anything crazy that's happened through your career? And then the second part of that is, what's your favorite memory?
We did a lot of crazy things happen. I'm trying to remember the ones I can actually tell without getting sued. You know, so I mean, I'm so lucky to work with guys like Jerry Coleman and Ted Leitner for as long as I did. I mean, I learned a lot about life from those guys just in general. Just like sitting back and just listening to people and being around people and just kind of taking all in, and you can learn a lot of things. And I started, I was 26, didn't know a lot of much of anything at the time, and I learned from those guys about how to treat other people, how to, be good, parent. I know people they joke about, Ted's got all his wives and kids, but Ted is one of the great fathers I've ever seen in action. He was, the things he did that people have no idea. Just to see his kids even for a few hours would just, I mean, he would literally, fly to 3 hours to see his kids for 2 hours, then fly back to be at the Padres. That's kind of yeah. That's funny. I had that mask too. That's funny. Yeah. So I was a student at San Diego State. They had that giveaway, those masks Halloween one year, football game. I
Huh.
got one, put it in my refrigerator, my college apartment. I never had an idea I'd work with Ted Leitner someday, right? And so I was there for like 3 or 4 years in my apartment, my refrigerator. And then, a few years later, I was working with the guy. So it was kind
That's
of funny.
crazy.
But as far as crazy stories, most of them do with travel, I think. That's when we travel, some of the weirdest things happen. The funniest one I talk about is where we landed in Montreal one night from another city, and there's two airports in Montreal. One is like way outside downtown. One is near downtown, but because past the curfew, we had to land the airport that was farther away. So we have two buses, one the staff and the coaches and the broadcast, and one of the players. And so we're driving through Montreal, the freeway. There's a construction of the freeway apparently. So we have to get off the freeway, detour. And apparently the bus drivers kind of got lost in some residential section of Montreal. And I'm like, and all of a sudden our bus, was usually the first bus, our bus stopped, and the bus behind us stopped, the player's bus. And I see the bus driver get off the player's bus, like throwing his hands in the air, like, I'm not driving anymore. That's it. I'm done. So apparently the players were just riding him so much that he got lost that he said, I can't drive anymore. Because players can be very merciful on a bus if you get lost. I've seen it happen before. I've heard some of the things they say. So this bus driver is like, I'm not driving you guys anymore. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning, too, by the way, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So the traveling secretary of the Padres time got off the bus, and he's like, I guess I'm looking through the window. I can see him like almost grabbing his lapels. I say, you better get back on this bus. Get us where we're supposed to go. And he has so basically we're lost in Montreal with one driver who doesn't drive us anymore. So miraculously, some kid comes driving by, riding his skateboard at 3 o'clock in the morning. He just got off work at a restaurant. It was like a busboy. And the player, someone said to him, hey, do you know how to get to the, I think it was a Marriott or Sheraton downtown Montreal? He said, yeah. He said, come on. Kid got on the bus. Our bus followed the player bus. We got to the hotel. I think every player probably tipped this kid $100.
Oh, that's fantastic.
He probably made, more money that night than he made in, half a year maybe as a busboy. They were also happy. And then the funniest one was a player I won't name said to the kid, he said, hey, can you tell the bus driver to something in French, like to, not very nice, derogatory to him, and he was using profanity. He said, sure. So he made $100 and told the bus driver, bleep, 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 and then we went on our way. But it was one of the more crazy travel stories we've had.
What year was that?
It was in the 90s sometime, mid-90s, late 90s, came from somewhere in there. Yeah, before there's like GPS, before cell phones and GPS so it was like this. But yeah, we were very, and we've had other stories too. We've had things with airplanes and stuff that have gone wrong where you're kind of stuck waiting around for several hours sometimes. And we had a flat tire one time. The day of the strike in '94, we were in Houston, flying back to San Diego. Everybody's already pretty upset the strike is going to start the next day. So we get on the plane in Houston, the airport, and there's when the tires is flat. I learned you just can't change a tire, overnight, or just in a few minutes, like at the gas station on an airplane. And there had to be 2 airports in Houston. Our airline didn't have any tires at that airport, so I literally had to drive a new tire over from the other airport in rush hour traffic to our airport to change the tire. By the time we took off, like 7 hours later, just sitting there waiting. All the food got eaten, all the alcohol and beer got drunk. And everybody's already mad, and it was this kind of we kind of joke that the owners, punch the tire intentionally to get back to the players, to make it flat, but it never. But yeah, that was another long day of travel. Yeah, so we would travel very nicely, charter airplanes and that kind of stuff. But when things go wrong, sometimes it can. We don't just take the next flight half hour later to that city. We have to wait for a whole new plane sometimes, or sometimes. So it's when it goes good, it's good. When it goes bad, it can be a little lengthy delays for sure.
Not every team had a Ted Turner in a private jet.
Yeah, no, it's well, the mechanical things are not always the easiest thing to overcome. Especially on a charter plane where it's you can't just get the next one in line. You have to fly a new plane in, sometimes a new crew in. Sometimes it's gonna be but luckily it's been a long time we had any really major malfunctions travel wise. But in favorite memory, there's so many. I mean, I think the ultimate goal is to win a World Series, and Padres haven't done that yet, obviously. But 1998. Playing the Yankees in the World Series. That was like, if you're going to play in the World Series, like that was the team to play as the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. And just remember that being there and, seeing Jerry Coleman, who of course played for the Yankees and won, 5 World Series as a player for the Yankees, and having the people who he knew come by the booth to see Jerry. Only Phil Rizzuto, who was his double play partner of the Yankees, also a Yankee broadcaster, came by, and to watch those two guys who are very similar personalities, talk is like watching a comedy show. And I remember saying to Ted during the game, I said, "What are we doing here? We're usually watching this on TV. We're actually at the World Series at Yankee Stadium. The Padres are the ones playing. We get a chance to be a part of it in person." That was kind of sticks out. The whole '98 season, so many great memories, but other memories, just watching Tony Gwynn Sr. play every day, the last 8 years of his career, seeing him, and how he went about his business every day, and Trevor Hoffman, watch him. Grow from the guy people said, who's Trevor Hoffman? Why did they trade Gary Sheffield with Trevor Hoffman? Watch Trevor become, obviously one of the best closers in the Hall of Famer. Watching him for so many years and just, lockdown games, every time you knew Trevor came to the game, said, that's it. Trevor's in the game.
Yep.
99% of the time, this is going to be a victory. So
and still to this day, when we hear Hell's Bells play anywhere, it evokes our Trevor Hoffman.
Yeah, there's actually a closer, another relief pitcher somewhere who uses that, uses Hell's Bells. We asked Trevor for permission to use it, and Trevor said, "Sure." So we actually do that once. I forget who that is right now, but anyways, it still lives. But yeah, anybody went to a game when Trevor pitched and Hell's Bells played was those 3 minutes were pretty cool.
Well, we were spoiled. And speaking of spoiled, the last thing that I'll ask you here is, tell me about the memories of this man right here. Sorry, it's grainy. It is an old photo.
Yeah, it was a great poster. I mean, when they gave that poster away when he won his.
I have it hanging in my workshop.
Yeah. I mean, Tony was just personally, when I interned at Channel 10 when I was in college, Tony's come into the studio and do a segment every once in a while on Channel 10. And I kind of met him briefly there. I was the intern in the back of the room kind of guy. When I got this job during that first spring trade in '94, on this walk the hotel the team was staying at in Arizona, because now everybody stays in apartments or a condo. Now they're only but back then in '94, Peoria was just growing. So all us all at the same hotel, and I walked to the lobby, and our eyes met, and he's called me over. He said, "Hey, how's it going? What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm do producer engineering." He's like, "Oh, that's great. Congratulations." And the words I remember forever is he said, "If you ever need anything, let me know." And for a scared, 26-year-old kid at the time, having the star player of the team say that to me, I'll never forget it. I mean, that just, I always remember. I've told Tony Jr., who I, met when he was 10 years old. Now we work together. That story as well, because Yeah, I mean, his dad, I mean, Tony Sr. was great, and over the years, you know, we would have a lot of conversation. After, it was more when he retired, he was a broadcaster on TV side. He was come out of the booth and talk, and you know, he loved talking with his grandkids, you know, at the time, and loved coaching San Diego State. I always said, why don't you get a major league job or a big time broadcasting job? He loved the Aztecs so much that he was going to do that job no matter what and see it through, and see them be successful as he could.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, people have met Tony off the field. I mean, if you ever have it, he was, again, like I said, Vince Scully, very similar, personality wise. What you saw with Tony in the baseball uniform, what he was off the field as well. So I was very lucky getting to watch him play, like I said, and just kind of watch his process and and how he prepared for games. You learn a lot from watching some of these athletes, how they prepare for their jobs, and apply your own job sometimes. Trevor was the same way. Trevor, even after the Potty might clinch the division title one night, the next day he's out there doing his laps around the ballpark or on the warning track. So I learned a lot from those guys as well, just watching them prepare for what they did. And you think more guys would do the same thing player wise, because they'd see, hey, these are the best players in the world doing this preparation. Well, I mean, I should do the same thing.
Proven.
Well, but more guys, I'm always surprised don't do that. It's like Trevor and Tony did. But yeah, it's great. With Tony's son now and then Tony Jr. And it's, we had a lot of fun up there with he and Jesse.
Yeah, we were definitely blessed with those two players. Well, I believe that's going to wrap it up, pal. Unless you have anything else to add.
No, I say I get very fortunate to have this job for a long time. Sure, people like you who I name here a long time. When's that guy going to go away? Are you still there?
I don't think anybody's saying that.
No, I'm very lucky. It's just been a great ride, and I've grown up doing this, and so now I have a wife and a kid, and it's single and didn't care in the world back then. Now it's a lot different now, obviously, but I'm very lucky, and hopefully I always joke I stick with it to see a no-hitter in person. I saw one last year. Dylan Cease got one. Yep. So hopefully now next step is win a World Series. That'd be really fun just to see what that's like. I mean, I think San Diego deserves it. The fans have been amazing the last few years, especially. Everybody comes to San Diego and says, oh my God, I can't believe these fans are so into the games. It's really noticeable, not just to us who are there every day. It's people come in just for once or twice a year. They notice it as well. So it'll be great to see the Padres hopefully someday win a World Series, and they'll be from my perspective, the broadcast booth, see what that looks like. That's my hope.
So
that's my goal. I stick around to see that happen. So
yeah, for sure, absolutely. Well, let me know if you need me to be your baggage handler in Chicago, and I'd be more than happy to be your assistant.
Certainly.
All right, bud. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. I've always admired you. I've always appreciated and respected you, and thank you for taking the time to come on my show.
You're welcome, John. Thanks for asking. Appreciate it.
All right, Dave. Have yourself a good evening. I will catch you later.
All right. So long. Thanks.
Bye now.
Bye.
Well, thank you for tuning in. Next week, I'm not sure exactly. I have a couple things lined up. Not sure which one's going to hit right now. But when I know, you will know. Other than that, you guys have a great evening, and we'll talk to you later.